All right. Okay, so we might still have a few stragglers coming in, but we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Nice to see everyone's faces. So we're going to get started today. We're going to do breakout rooms again, but today we're going to kind of have a little bit of a theme to it, where we're going to do kind of a debate club. So I hope you guys are excited and ready for that. So I think one thing that I wanted to talk you through before we get started is for kind of the debate club, I wanted you to be able to have like a reference to be able to pull from to talk through everything. So we're going to talk through how to access the DSM-5. Raise your hand if you can access the DSM-5 through the Rutgers Library and if you've done it before. Oh, okay, so not that many. So this is a great tool, and pretty much any like academic institution that you would be at often has like a database where you can access these sorts of things for free, which is great. That way you don't always have to like be carrying a book around, which can be very helpful. So quickly, I'm gonna share my screen and talk you guys through that, okay? Okay, can everybody see my screen? Thumbs up. All right, great. So what you're seeing, just you can quickly Google search Rutgers Library. Probably the first thing that will come up is this, and you can go straight towards databases. And you can just do a quick search for DSM. And Psychiatry Online right here has like the full DSM easily accessed. So if you guys could follow along with this so that you can use it today as we're going through. All right, so once you've pulled up this Psychiatry Online database, right up here at the top, there's DSM Library, where you can just go to DSM-5. And as long as you're like signed in on the library, this will pull up and you can go straight towards like diagnostic criteria and codes, and you can see all of the different categories. Click each one, and then you'll be able to see all of the different like sections within. So a really great tool and easy to use. So we'll be using that today, okay? Everyone could either, if you already have a copy of the DSM that you're comfortable with that's physical, go ahead and pull that out, or go on your computers and pull this up now.
When I searched it up, the like Psychiatry Online come up, but like a bunch of different books came up, but they're not the DSM-5.
Okay, so if you go to the database, are you searching database?
I'm not sure. I just did search.
Okay, yeah. So that's gonna like pull up a lot of the like sub things. So if you go, and there are a lot of databases, so this is a really good tool to be able to use through the library. So if you like, you can just even Google search Rutgers Library database, and you should be able to click straight into the database. And then if you search the databases, that will help you to like pull up all of these really good tools. So go to databases for the library and then search. You can just search DSM, and Psychiatry Online comes up through that.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then, yeah, at the top of their header towards the left, you can have a little thing pulled down, and then you can specifically say like the DSM-5 rather than like the differential. And there's some like other sort of books there. So easy way to be able to access DSM on the go. All right, so we have everybody here. If everybody could either, like I said, have their physical copy of the DSM out or pull up the database for today. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again and we can get started. All right. So, what are some general thoughts on these two episodes? Does anybody have any questions or concerns about one of our great characters?
I feel like Utani showed an externalizing behavior as a child. I think she's okay now. And I think it was more like conduct disorder and I think a lot of had to do with how her mom left her and her father's substance abuse disorder.
Yeah, I think that those are very good observations. Anybody else have any thoughts? How many people kind of nod of heads would be thinking about conduct disorder here? Yeah. Yeah, conduct disorder is definitely something that we're going to be looking at today. So we can go ahead and jump right in based off of that wonderful setup. So we're going to be talking through conduct disorder as one of the things that we can be thinking about in Utani. We're also going to be talking about oppositional defiant disorder as another consideration for her. And so we're kind of going to do a little bit of a debate team here, and we're going to have sort of two groups battling. We're going to have one that is a conduct disorder group, and we're going to have a not conduct disorder group. So why you think that maybe this wouldn't be an appropriate diagnosis for her. We're going to have another group that's oppositional defiant disorder, and another group, the last group, fourth group, that is against oppositional defiant disorder. Why you think that it wouldn't be that. So we're going to split up into breakout rooms. And like I said, if you can pull up your DSM, and depending on your group, you'll probably, or almost everybody. Who from the group would like to talk? And preferably, if you didn't get a chance to talk during the last one, if you want to speak up for your group.
I could talk for our group.
Okay, great.
So I guess I'll just say like what we diagnosed, like decided on.
Yeah, go for it.
So adolescent onset type with severe, at least in middle school, I'd say it was severe. But like if we're talking currently, how she is now, like mild, I think. But in middle school, at least, she fit like 6 of the 15 diagnostic criteria from what we saw. We'd also say definitely unconcerned about performance as well. Yeah, that was most of our diagnosis for her. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so we'd love to maybe hear some examples. I've kind of pulled up some of the things and we can kind of go through them a little bit if you want to speak to any of these. So you said 6 of the 15?
So definitely the like aggression of people and animals. I mean, there are multiple scenes of her still in the gang, like just ganging up on someone, or I know she used weapons, like not like consistently, but there were a couple scenes where she had a weapon and was using it.
Yeah, we did see some of that, right?
Yeah. And yeah, intimidating others in school for sure. Like when we saw her walking back into the school when she came back for the first time, everyone was like, whoa, she's back. I'm just scared of her. Physically cruel to people, just all the fighting in the gang. No force someone into sexual activity, or we didn't see any examples of stealing from what I can remember.
Yeah, it looks more like intimidation for most of it, right? Yeah. I think there was like one moment where she was with some people who seemed to be stealing, but it didn't seem like she was quite involved with it. So, but yeah, we saw her use a weapon like a baseball bat and some other things. She was in a number of physical fights. and intimidating others. Okay, how about any of these? Were you guys thinking about these?
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was any sort of destruction of property from what we had seen in the 2 episodes. Nor the shoplifting or like any kind of theft. But there was not in relation to theft, but like truancy and like not going to school was also another big part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of those serious violations of rules.
I don't know that we saw her run away from home, right? I mean, I kind of assume she has, since it wasn't like a good home. I mean, maybe not run away from home, but definitely stayed out for a long period of time.
Yeah, it seems like she's more of the breaking curfew, though it doesn't really seem like she actually had very many parental prohibitions. So
Mhm.
I don't know if her father was really involved enough to even be setting a curfew, but she was definitely staying out late at night, later than, what most parents would have been okay with. But there was kind of that one moment when Kyoko, Toru's mom, is talking to her and she says, oh, maybe you have strict parents, you need to go home. And she says, like, you can look at me and tell I don't have strict parents. So that's kind of an interesting kind of consideration with this particular characteristic. Is it trying to go against a parent's wishes, so like ignoring that rule, or are they just staying out late because nobody cares, right? No. The truancy from school, yeah, certainly she was gone a lot, right? She really only started going because she was interested in meeting Toru, right?
Yeah, and I was also curious whether it would be adolescent onset or unspecified, because we didn't really see anything before the age of 10, besides like there was the one scene of her mom leaving, and we saw her as like, I mean, we don't know how old she was, but she looked like just very angry and upset, and like
Yeah, I think she
seemed
said
like there could
first
be some
grade.
evidence.
I think it was like first grade, so maybe about 6 years old.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. She seemed so upset from the very beginning of that moment. Yeah. So yeah, the specifiers of childhood versus adolescent versus unspecified onset. It's a hard one to say. So we would be thinking, we were seeing most of these big symptoms in her middle school years, right? But we did see some signs of that anger before 10 years old, like in first grade even. So yeah, I think you're right to be thinking maybe unspecified, because we're not really getting quite enough info on that exact timeline. Yeah. And then what did you guys think for severity?
Yeah, definitely in middle school, severe, I'd say. If we're talking currently, I don't even know, like I want to say mild, but like I don't even know if she really fits that, because I'd say
Yeah.
currently like intimidating others, but like it's usually out of like for somebody else almost. Like if someone's like
Yeah.
bullying Toru or something, or just messing with one of her friends, she'll like step up. But
Yeah.
and I want to say she's no, I don't think she's still truant either. So
Yeah. She seems to be going pretty regularly now, right?
yeah.
Okay. How about any of the associated features?
Yeah, I don't think she really fits those either. Maybe
Yeah.
an insensitivity to punishment, but
Yeah, she does have
not
some
that we.
of those temper outbursts sometimes. She and Kyo kind of go head to head sometimes.
Mm.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we will ask about the not conduct disorder group, group number 2. Who wants to speak out for your group?
So we said that it wasn't conduct disorder because of the fact that she does fit the criteria that she often bullies and threatens or intimidates others. She does initiate physical fights and she is cruel to people, but she never showed signs of physically being cruel to animals. We never see signs of her stealing. We never see signs of her forcing any sexual activity onto anyone else. And we never see destruction of property. I think if it was destruction of property, whenever she got the opportunity to go to Toru's house, just the environment, seeing that it's a nurturing environment, something that she never grew up in, would have agitated her or would have made her upset and would have caused her to maybe vandalize the home if it was conduct disorder. But we don't see that. We also don't see her using weapons as much. Maybe we see her like once or twice with the weapon, but it's never been something that stands out as much. And we never see theft, which again, I think if she was in Toru's house and she had a conduct disorder, she probably would have stolen something, and she never did. And then often stays out late. I think that doesn't really apply to her just because she doesn't have order in her life. She doesn't have her mom to say, oh, you have to be home at this time. And then her father, he suffers with alcoholism, so he doesn't really have that much say in her life or what she does. So we ended up saying that it wasn't conduct disorder and that it was actually, we said that it was oppositional defiant disorder. And Liz can get a little bit into that as to why we thought it was that.
Yeah, is it okay if I?
Yeah, jump in.
So we more thought it was oppositional defiant disorder just because she loses her temper a lot. She's very like angry and resentful, especially towards her mom for leaving and her dad for his alcohol use disorder. She argues with authority figures a lot. She argues with Kyoko, Toru's mom. She was like very rude to her in the beginning because she didn't fit the image that she had in her mind of what of kind of like what her idol in a sense looked like and like did. And she does, we kind of inferred that she has broken like rules in the past just from the scene of where like Toru and her are talking and the teacher comes up and is like very concerned for Toru because they're like this would be like an unlikely relationship. So we obviously kind of see that she doesn't have the greatest reputation at school. And then she also like blames, it talked about blaming, sorry, I have to like go up really quickly. But it talked about how she like blames others for her mistakes. And I felt like she kind of did that with her mom and her dad. Like she kind of attributed to her behavior to to the things that had happened into her life.
Yes, I think that you're pointing out a really important aspect of diagnosing, which is you wouldn't diagnose somebody with one thing if you thought that there was a better fit out there. And that's always going to be like a consideration. And that's why we kind of have these differentials and, we try to go through and see like which one would be the best fit. So definitely point out some wonderful things. And I think our opposition defiant might have some similar thoughts to that. And I think that one of the things that we do have to think about when saying it's not something is that timeline as well. Did you guys talk through the kind of the timeline of like, would we be able to diagnose this in somebody based on the timeline that we're seeing for her?
It says like 6 months. So it says like lasting at least 6 months as evidenced by at least 4 symptoms. So I'm assuming that it was like there's
for conduct disorder, for it not being conduct disorder.
No.
Yeah. So if you guys want to think about it, and not being conduct disorder, so like the conduct disorder pro group was saying, a lot of these things were present, but they did have to acknowledge that those things were present during her middle school. From what we are gathering from the story, it sounds like it's been a while, right?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. So if we're thinking like past 12 months, I'm not sure if we were really seeing that in like the past year or so. So I think that's important to be thinking about too when we're saying, maybe not this one. Has it been recent? Have we been seeing this continuing? And it does seem like she has had some change, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Thank you guys so much. And thanks for double teaming. We've got lots of voices coming in today. That's great. All right. So, oppositional defiant disorder, the pro group.
So we said that she fits the oppositional defiant disorder more. And then like what Liz was saying, that she is like showing like how angry and like irritable she is, and she's always like picking fights with people, even if like they look at her in a weird way. She kind of like takes it as an insult. And she definitely shows like a lot of resentment and anger towards like she blames a lot of her issues on her mom leaving and like her dad being like an alcoholic, and how like that's her kind of like her reason for why she is like the way she is. And she kind of like looks at Toru and is like very envious of the relationship she has with her mom, compared to like her relationship and like her mom abandoning her. And then we also did say that it does last for at least 6 months, because it is throughout her middle school that she's in like a gang, and it seems like she's been in it for like a while, considering how like familiar and like friendly she is with like the other like members in that gang. And she does blame like her like mistakes and like her misbehavior on, like as I said before, like on other people. And her anger is kind of like sorry, I'm like losing what I was just saying, but like her anger is projected like towards other people, and she doesn't really take any of the blame for herself. And then we also said like one of the reasons why it's not conduct disorder is because, well, as I said, it doesn't last for a while, and it's not like she turns into where she starts having, it gets worse, where she has like anti-personality disorder. It ends up like she ends up changing for the better after she befriends Toru, and like she sees that like she's able to change like the way she is, and not everything is like someone else's fault basically. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that those are great points. And yeah, again, like kind of keeping some of the timeline in mind, we might talk with the against oppositional defiant disorder about that. But you're right, but during middle school, losing her temper and really like defying those rules, like we were, I think, both you and Liz were pointing out her activity at school. And we really get to see a lot based on kind of others' reactions to her at school. Some of those might have seemed a bit harsh from different people, but it certainly helped us to get the idea that she was, really kind of not being involved, not doing what teachers wanted, that type of thing, those authority figures. Yeah. How about any of the kind of associated features? Like
Well,
what
we
about
said, oh,
sorry, wrong one. There we go.
I mean, she doesn't really have, I don't think it really shows that she has like ADHD or anything, but I mean, because we like, you can also think that she has conduct disorder, could coincide with like her oppositional defiant disorder, but I think she fits this one more than the other one. Like she fits all the criteria. And then I guess her childhood is disrupted because her mom does leave her, and her father isn't, I'm assuming, wasn't really taking care of her when she was like much younger, which is why she also holds like such resentment against him.
Yeah, he definitely seemed pretty
Yeah.
neglectful, right?
And I guess you could also say it was inconsistent. I mean, harsh as in like her mom leaving her and she doesn't have any like parent to like tell her like, oh, this is okay and this is not okay. But I guess that is also inconsistent as well and neglectful because she doesn't have like someone teaching her obedience and like making sure she goes to school and everything. So
Yeah, definitely. What would you think of, what did your group think about for severity?
I think, well, I think we could kind of say it would might be like severe to moderate just because you see how it affects like at her home, like with her dad, and then even at school she's not showing up, or if she does show up, she's kind of making a scene or not abiding by like the rules. And I don't think you really see her like she has a job or anything. And her peers are kind of like, well, the gang members, so they're not really a good influence on her as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we definitely do see that multiple setting, like with at home, she's not listening to her dad if he were to kind of engage with her. She even mentions that when she is like sitting down on Kyoko and Toru's floor, where she's saying, even like this is such a nice like environment, even if I had this environment, even if my dad, had dinner waiting for me, I'd probably tell him like it was gross or something. So she's saying like she does feel like those symptoms are kind of present both at home, and then we see them at school, and we see them like with her peers at work. Oh, my screen stopped for some reason. One minute. Okay. Okay, so next group, the not oppositional defiant disorder. What are your thoughts?
We said that I know how we mentioned that she had it throughout her middle school years, like she was lashing out. She was like being angry towards others, but we didn't think it lasted more than 6 months. We still wouldn't know that it would last more than 6 months. And then we also said that like she doesn't often argue with authority figures. She just more so, I guess, leaves and like keeps it to herself and then just gets angry and walks out. Like the scene that was in the house with Toru and her mom, she just kind of left the scene. I feel like she doesn't try to like deliberately annoy others. I think she has it within her where she like feels resentment, and like seeing Toru and her mom together makes her feel upset. That's why she kind of lashes out and reacts the way she does, but she doesn't like necessarily want to react like that because she does want to change, and she wants to change for Toru too, like she said in the show. Also, we could say that it could be due to like where it was talking about, I know in like the DSM it said like in like the note section of the DSM it said that its frequency of intensity of behaviors are outside a range that is normative for the individual and individual's developmental level. So it could be because she's still developing in like middle school, like females have hormones, so it could be like also due to that she's not like fully developed. That's one point that we brought up too. And then we can't necessarily rule out the other does not occur exclusively during psychotic substance use, depressive, or bipolar disorder, because her childhood was pretty rough. So she probably does have either like PTSD or like depressive symptoms from her childhood. So before, I guess, diagnosing her with oppositional defiant disorder, you would have to know that like she doesn't encompass any of the symptoms for like depression or PTSD, I'd say. But besides that, I feel like it would pretty much be oppositional defiant disorder if we were to diagnose between one of the two.
Yeah, yeah. So, there are things that give us pause still about diagnosing her with oppositional defiant disorder. So she isn't, for instance, like, well, she is an only child, so I do think that this is really interesting. We don't get to see this with her, but the symptoms have to be exhibited with at least one person who is not a sibling. So I have a sibling. I always think it's very funny because even the DSM recognizes that siblings might argue and be difficult with each other. So that's always kind of an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, so as for like that timeline, we have to see those symptoms being present for at least 6 months. And yeah, we saw most of her middle school was like that. And, you know, it's interesting, it's the first symptoms usually begin in preschool rather than being in the early teens. For her, though, we didn't really see this starting very young. We really kind of only saw it starting in that relation to her mother leaving and feeling, you know, some of those symptoms of like sadness and resentfulness. So something to keep in mind as well. I agree with you, though, especially during middle school, she really did exemplify almost all of these things. But, you know, we do have to keep in mind that she really has seemed to really develop and change and kind of grow out of a lot of these behaviors. So whether we could diagnose her with that currently, you know, we'd have to find out a little bit more about her symptoms in the timeline. Okay, screen. There we go. And yeah, as Liz mentioned, and Sandra mentioned, we do see her childcare being disrupted quite a bit. And a lot of this we can see as maybe some direct even causes of some of these behaviors, that neglectful child rearing. Okay, this is just one of my favorite scenes. All right, so guys, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or thoughts? Well, I would say that if you do get a chance today or in the next week, if you want to take a look at the disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, given that we would have to rule that out before diagnosing this, that's an interesting one. It's actually not under the conduct or impulsive disorders. It's actually under the depressive disorders in the DSM-5. So if you get a chance to look there, that would definitely be helpful for you. And as always, we use the DSM in this.